Very warm welcome to Amishakil 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Following are the latest news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, African and Australian news channels and all other news agencies. So please, let's go to the news.
Tonight, the Catholic Church in transition. Pope Francis's funeral set for Saturday as the Vatican reveals the rituals and personal details that will be part of his farewell. Our Tom Yama is at the Vatican on where the Catholic Church could go from here, as meetings between the cardinals are already underway as they prepare to choose who will lead them.
Do you want the Pope to modernize the Church, or do you want a Pope that is conservative?
I want the Pope who follows gospel.
Our exclusive reporting, sources telling NBC News Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared sensitive military information just minutes after receiving it through secure channels. Elon Musk tonight saying his time with Doge will drop significantly after Tesla reported a 20% drop in auto revenue. Universities united. More than 200 higher ed leaders push back on the Trump administration's efforts to bring sweeping changes to their schools. Karen Lee back in court, the woman accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by striking him with her SUV, now standing trial again. Laura Jarrett on the dramatic day in court. The wildfire tearing through New Jersey, the evacuation orders underway.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. Moving with speed and the guidance of ancient tradition, plans are unfolding for the funeral and burial of Pope Francis. A Saturday morning funeral at St. Peter's Basilica is expected to draw some of the world's most powerful people, including President Trump. But in death, as in life, it is the powerless Francis wanted reflected in the memorial plans that he helped draft. They include the simple coffin he chose and that he now rests in inside of Vatican Chapel. These images released by the Vatican today are first look at him since his death. Tonight, as the cardinals, who within weeks will choose his successor, gather in Rome, the faithful wait in anticipation for their chance to see the Pope one last time to say goodbye. It was announced today the Pope will lie in state in St. Peter's Basilica tomorrow through Friday. Tom Yamas leads our coverage from the Vatican. Tom, good evening.
Lester, good evening to you. In just hours, St. Peter's Square here just behind me will transform with people and ritual. Right now, tonight, Pope Francis lies in rest, and only his family, close friends, and some cardinals have seen him. But that all changes tomorrow when his body and his coffin will come here to St. Peter's Square, and the public will get to pay their respects.
And I'm Amna Navaz. On the News Hour tonight, economic forecasts increasingly show the president's harsh tariffs having a major global impact.
The Vatican makes arrangements for the funeral of Pope Francis as speculation over his successor intensifies.
And the Supreme Court hears a potential landmark case regarding religious rights and public school curriculum.
If they rule in favor of the parents, certainly you're going to see more opt-outs in situations like this.
People are here. President Trump is taking some questions at the White House. Let's listen.
Our trade, $5 billion a day. And now we have it down to a very low number because we're getting 25% from the automobile industry, from autos. We're getting 25% for steel, 25% for aluminum, and we're getting the baseline of 10%. And think of it, we're losing almost $2 trillion on trade. And those days are gone. We're not going to do that again. We're not going to let that happen. We're being ripped off by almost, I don't say every, but very close to every country, everywhere in the world, just being ripped off left and right. Yet no leadership, yet people that didn't know what they were doing. And we're going to turn the country around. You know, we have a very nice phrase, make America great again. That's what we're going to do. And it's going to start with trade. We're doing really well. I see the stock market was up nicely, but this is a transition period. And it's going to be a little while, but we are doing well with every country. Ultimately, we have something they want, and you have to view it that way. We have something they want, and they want very badly. And, it's going to be, they're coming in, they're taking treasure, they're taking jobs when they do that, and they have to pay. And they don't have to pay if they come in and create their own jobs. You know, if they do their product here, if they build their product or make their product in the United States, we have absolutely no tariffs, and we welcome people. But we're taking in a lot of money from tariffs, and our country's getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice, and we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. So we want them involved, but they have to, and other countries have to make a deal. And if they don't make a deal, we'll set the deal because we're the ones that set the deal. Scott and Howard, myself, and others, we're going to be setting the deal, and it'll be a fair deal for everybody, and it'll be, I think it's a process that's going to go pretty quickly. We've spoken to many, many countries, and we're getting their views on things. You know, there are a lot of things. They have VAT taxes. They have everything you can have. Don't forget, as an example, the European Union was set up to take advantage of the United States. That's why it was set, and they've done that, but they're not doing that anymore. Yeah.
Would you prevent Hamas from having any role in governing a post-war Gaza? Will Hamas have to be permanently eradicated for ceasefire?
Well, we're not going to let Hamas do that, and we're going to see what happens with Gaza. But we've made a lot of progress in the Middle East. Tremendous. Should have never happened. That date, that very special date, October 7th, should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president. But we'll be stopping that whole situation. Yeah.
Thursday, President Secretary Justin suggested that tariff rates as high as they are now have to be more of a trade for the United States.
Not sure. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. Not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, we have learned about the last words of Pope Francis, what he asked about, and what played out during the final moments of his life. Tonight, the global outpouring for Pope Francis now lying in the open wooden casket, the simple casket he asked for. The Swiss Guard standing watch in his chapel, in his modest residence. The Vatican describing his final moments, what he asked about for that last surprise appearance in St. Peter's Square. The question to his nurse just before greeting thousands of followers. Then hours later, his last words and his parting gesture to his nurse. Also tonight, hear what we're now learning about the conclave, the cardinals, and that secret ritual to elect a new pope. How long could it take, and what we know about those who will vote already. James Longman standing by live at the Vatican tonight. The other news this Tuesday night, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth fiercely dismissing reports that he discussed sensitive details, the imminent launch of F-18 fighter jets to Yemen, and yet a second group chat on the Signal app. This second chat included his wife, brother, and personal attorney. And tonight, how the Secretary is explaining this. Tonight, the stark warning about President Trump's tariffs and the U.S. economy, the International Monetary Fund, and their warning tonight, what they're now forecasting when it comes to the economy. And late today, the huge blow to Elon Musk's Tesla profits in the first 3 months of this year, down 71%. And what Elon Musk said just moments ago to investors, and what he's also saying about President Trump's tariffs. Tonight, the case making national headlines in Boston, the second murder trial of Karen Reed now underway. Accused of running down her boyfriend in her SUV, a Boston police officer. Her defense team says she's being framed, and in a rare move, Karen Reed has brought on an alternate juror from her first trial to serve as part of her defense team. Tonight, the dyes that color so much of the food on the shelves at your grocery store. Tonight, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now planning to phase out 8 artificial food dyes. What's in that dye? And tonight, from some Cheetos to Skittles to M&Ms, what will they look like without the dye? And will they find another way? Tonight in the Northeast, the image is coming in now. The large wildfire exploding in size. Evacuations underway at this hour. The Super Bowl champ and his plea to the person who stole his car. What's happened now and how this played out, you'll see it right here. And on this first day, the extraordinary new images, the emperor penguins and their fight for survival. What scientists have learned about the one egg they lay a year and why it's at risk.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York,
On this Tuesday night, the Conservatives unveil their costed platform. The billions in promised spending and cuts.
we will cut the Liberal deficit by 70%.
How it compares to the Liberals' plan and what economists think of it. The trial begins for 5 former NHL players accused of sexual assault, the evidence expected to emerge. Finalizing the Pope's funeral arrangements when he'll be laid to rest, plus what we're learning about his final hours. And eternal gratitude. It was a miracle. Poignant memories of the Pontiff's landmark apology for Canada's residential schools.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Nico Garcia.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. With less than a week to go until Election Day, millions of Canadians have already cast their ballots. Elections Canada confirms a record 7.3 million people voted during advance polls, which closed last night. But they did so without a full costed platform from the Conservative Party. That platform was only released today. And with just days left in the campaign, both Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal leader Mark Carney have been going on the offensive.
The choice is this: a fourth Liberal term with Mark Carney, whose reckless Liberal plan will add even more debt than Trudeau, or a new Conservative government with a responsible plan.
He wants to cut what Canada needs. With our plan, we will build to make Canada strong.
Taria Isri begins our coverage tonight with the long-awaited details of the Tories' costed platform. The Conservatives are banking on this plan to win over Canadians.
Change to put Canada first.
Change is the name of their long-awaited platform, which includes $73 billion in tax cuts and $36 billion in new spending over 4 years.
We will cut the Liberal deficit by 70%, cutting back on bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies.
Poilievre also made a new promise, never hiking federal taxes without a referendum first.
The Conservative platform is based on the idea that a lot of these problems can be best addressed by reducing taxes and getting government out of the way.
Even with the cuts, there's no path to balancing the books. Poilievre is planning to run deficits totaling $100 billion between now and 2029.
Let's be clear.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois. I'm John Dickerson. The final goodbyes have begun for Pope Francis. Vatican residents and members of the papal household filed past his coffin in a guest house adjacent to the Vatican.
That was a private viewing. The Pope will be moved tomorrow to St. Peter's Basilica, where the public can pay respects before his funeral on Saturday.
Members of the College of Cardinals will meet next month behind the locked doors of the Sistine Chapel to choose a new pope, but they've already begun consulting one another. Seth Doan is in Rome tonight. Seth.
Cardinals are indeed coming from all over the world, of course, to mourn Pope Francis, but also really to start looking forward. And as you know, some of that work to select the next pope happens well before the conclave begins. It was clear where they were going this morning. Cardinals in their red cap or zucchetto, conspicuous even on the streets of Rome. Today it was the first in a series of secret meetings they'll hold, with the direction of the church at stake. We saw the opening prayer, but little else, only learning that Pope Francis's funeral was set for Saturday. We're heading to meet the editorial director of the Vatican Department of Communications. All of the Vatican Communications, radio, web, television, come through him.
During all his life and when I met him, I think that one idea of his life is to be normal.
Francis's desire for normalcy, Andrea Tornielli says, is reflected in his wish for a more simplified coffin, burial, and tomb. Seeing those pictures of the Pope in his coffin, some of them seem quite raw. I wondered, is that something that he said, show it like it is?
For the faithful, it's important also to see the body of the Pope as the body of a relative that he loved. It's also a sign, I think, of our life and what's happening just after our death.
From tomorrow, the public will get a chance to pay respects to a Pope who centered his ministry on themes of mercy, compassion, and peace.
His legacy is a church with open doors. Pope Francis didn't change doctrine, but change an attitude, especially to poor people, people who are suffering, immigrants, and so on.
If he didn't change doctrine, but changed tone, does that last in the long term?
I think, yes, each reform starts in the heart of man.
And Seth Doan joins us now. Seth.
Arts in the heart of America.
And Seth Doan joins us now. Seth, a lot of people have watched the movie Conclave, and that may be informing their view of the way this is going to happen.
The Ivy.
Today, the coalition pledges an extra $21 billion for defence by 2030, while Labor hopes to win over votes by fast-tracking trade qualifications. Pope Francis to lie in state at St. Peter's Basilica ahead of his funeral this weekend. The IMF warns global economic growth will slow due to Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs. Tesla profits plunge 70% amid sliding sales and a backlash against Elon Musk's political actions. And from Robertson in New South Wales to Wannon in Victoria, we take a look at some of the key seats of the federal election. Hello, I'm Gemma Vaness, and this is ABC News Mornings. Defence is now front and centre of the election campaign, with the coalition promising to increase military spending by $21 billion by 2030. Fresh from being named the winner of last night's third leaders debate by a panel of 3 journalists, Peter Dutton has pledged to lift defence spending to 2.5% of GDP. That's well above Labor's promise. For more on the campaign, we have Olivia Caisley in Canberra, but first, Evelyn Manfield has the latest on the defence pledge from Perth.
This is a major announcement, Gemma, by Liberal leader Peter Dutton, and he'll make it here in Western Australia today. A promise to boost defence spending by $21 billion over the next 5 years. As a share of GDP, that would be 2.5% over the next 5 years, up from the current share of GDP, that's at about 2%. Now, for comparison, in terms of defence spending, Labor is promising that it would spend 2.3% of GDP on defence by the early 2030s. So lots of numbers for people to process there. But the Liberal Party was asked today about exactly what it would spend this extra money on. It says that it would go towards things like recruiting and retaining defence personnel. We know that's been a problem for the ADF, but also
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. A group of 4 Democratic lawmakers arrived in El Salvador Monday to continue to push for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father who remains detained at CICAT, the mega prison, where he was transferred, and what the Trump administration admitted was an administrative error. The delegation was led by Democratic Representatives Yasamin Ansari of Arizona, Maxine Dexter of Oregon, Maxwell Frost of Florida, and Robert Garcia of California. The group spoke from the capital, San Salvador. This is Congressmember Frost.
This isn't just about him. This is also about every single person in the United States. The Constitution applies to all people in our country. Due process applies to all people in our country. It's one of the things that sets our country apart from other places across the entire world. And so we're worried, of course, we demand the release of Abrego Garcia, but we're also worried about our own constituents.
This comes as the relatives of Venezuelan immigrants jailed at the Blue Bonnet ICE jail in Texas are fighting for their release after the U.S. Supreme Court temporarily blocked the Trump administration from expelling them to El Salvador's mega prison under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This is the brother of 28-year-old Jonathan Betancourt, one of the men at risk of being sent to CICAT.
Mi temor es que se lo lleven para allá injustamente porque
my fear is that they might unjustly take him there because my brother is not a criminal. He just has tattoos. He's a barber, and tattoos are an art for young people, as well as coloring their hair. He has no criminal record, neither in Venezuela nor in the United States, thank God.
Meanwhile,
fly thoughtful, fly Air Japan. Visit flyairjapan.com.
It's 9:30 here in Singapore. Good morning. This is Asia First. Here's a look at the top stories we've been following.
At least 26 tourists killed and 10 injured as suspected militants opened fire at a popular destination. Prime Minister Narendra Modi vowing to bring those behind the act to justice, as officials describe it as the deadliest attack on civilians in recent years, coinciding with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's India trip. The Vatican says hundreds of thousands of people expected to attend Pope Francis's funeral this Saturday in St. Peter's Square. His body will be taken in a procession from Santa Marta to St. Peter's Basilica, where he will remain in an open coffin until Friday to allow mourners to pay their respects. Plus,
I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not, but it would be good timing.
President Trump says he has no intention of firing Fed Chair Jerome Powell just days after he rattled investor confidence when he called the central bank chief, quote, a major loser, and said his termination can't come fast enough.
The surge in policy uncertainty is a major driver of the economic outlook. If sustained, the increase in trade tensions and uncertainty will slow global growth significantly.
The IMF slashing its 2025 GDP projections for most countries in the wake of tariffs, but the cuts for the US deeper than that of China. And less than 2 hours before nominations begin for Singapore's 14th general election, hopefuls from across the political spectrum will file their papers at 9 centers, officially entering the race for 97 seats in 33 constituencies. But first, prayer services are being held around the world for Pope Francis, who died of a stroke on Monday. He was 88 years old. Thousands of people are flocking to the Vatican City to pay their last respects. The pontiff's body lies in state at the St. Peter's Basilica until his funeral on Saturday. John Beaver has more from Rome.
Hello, you're watching Sky's Creation. Here are the headlines. The funeral of Pope Francis will take place on Saturday morning. Prince William, Prime Minister and President Trump are among the dignitaries attending. More details have emerged about the Pope's final moments and the quick deterioration in his condition. As thousands of pilgrims and tourists flock to the Vatican, the Pontiff's body will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica for the public to pay their respects.
I will remember him especially for his smile. His Hello there, thanks for joining us this Wednesday. Thousands have arrived in Vatican City to we're heading off along with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump. Today, the test to elect the next president.
Afris, the news.
Burkina Faso's military government said on Monday that it had fought the main plot that plot included current and former soldiers and terrorist leaders. They had planned to swarm the presidential palace on April 16. This is just the latest attempt to overthrow Ibrahim Traoré after he seized power in the 2022 coup. His military government had pledged to fight jihadist troops and had even sought support from Russia, but security threats persist and 40% of the country remains under jihadist control. Mohamed Hussein said that the coup attempt aimed to sow total chaos and place the country under the supervision of an international organization. He also claimed that the plot instigators are based in Ivory Coast. Last week, Burkinabe authorities had already arrested several military personnel accused of planning to destabilize the government.
A court in Ivory Coast ruled on Tuesday that opposition leader, former Credit Suisse chief executive Tidjane Thiam, should be removed from the electoral role because he was a French national when he registered. The decision, which cannot be appealed, could end the Ivorian-born Thiam's ambition to run in the world's top cocoa-producing nation's presidential election. The issue of nationality has been a distraction in Tidjane's campaign for several months. Born in Ivory Coast, he acquired French nationality in 1987 and renounced it in March in order to run for president. A His candidates cannot hold dual nationality in the election. The arms camps have denounced the decision. However, his opponent cited Article 48 of the Nationality Code dating from the 1960s, which states that acquiring another nationality leads to the loss of Ivorian nationality. This rule, however, does not apply to individuals who are dual nationals by birth.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tugonu after a preliminary investigation found sufficient grounds for an inquiry into her conduct. The decision, announced on Tuesday, follows 3 petitions calling for her removal. It was made in consultation with the Council of State in accordance with Ghana's 1992 constitution. Though the details of the allegations remain confidential, they have sparked considerable discussion about judicial accountability in the country. A 5-member committee has been formed to pursue further investigations. The Chief Justice will remain suspended until the committee completes its investigation, which could have significant implications for Ghana's judicial system. Gertrude Tugonu, the country's 3rd female Chief Justice, has occupied this position since June 2023.
Israel's military on Tuesday destroyed bulldozers and other heavy equipment that have been supplied by mediators to clear the rebels in northern Gaza, according to Palestinian municipal authorities. An Israeli airstrike struck the garage of Jabalia al-Nazla municipality, destroying 9 bulldozers which entered in February during the ceasefire. This has affected the entire community here in the Jabalia refugee camp because there are no bulldozers now, no equipment or machinery to clear the streets or remove the garbage. The Israeli occupation's targeting of municipal equipment is a big problem for us in the Gaza Strip because this heavy equipment helps remove rubble and open roads. It will at least help speed up the relief process in the event of bombings or raids by the Israeli occupation. This equipment here in Gaza Strip and in the municipality was being used by the Civil Defense and the Ministry of Public Works. Israel said in month of
2 Kenyan runners have won the men's and women's races respectively in this year's Boston Marathon on Monday. Sharon Lockety broke the women's marathon record and finished 2.5 minutes faster than the previous record from 2014. The race also saw her outrun 2-time defending champion Helen Obiri.
It's just good to have that and being really like to change their pace, so just being ready to go at any time. So I think that was the only difference today. Like, you know, we come from this so fast, and I'm really grateful for them pushing from this side because I think that is what made the outcome.
Meanwhile, fellow Kenyan John Corrie won the men's race. His older brother Wesley also came first in the race in 2012, making them the first pair of brothers to win the world's oldest marathon.
Wesley told me expect this to be tough. I believe myself, I follow his advice. And at the end, it told me he's happy and he's enjoying now that we are 2 minutes.
In the women's division, the race has been won exclusively by Kenyan runners since 2021.
April 23rd, and if you're English, happy St. George's Day.
It's the feast day of England's patron saint. He's honoured in Christian churches across the world.
Well, the Prime Minister celebrates with a very special Downing Street reception. It features Labour's celebrity fans.
GB News is live from the Vatican, where thousands of pilgrims are arriving.
Well, it's also confirmed that Prince William will attend on behalf of the King, joining the Prime Minister Donald Trump and a slew of world leaders. In a
matter of hours, the Pontiff's final journey to the Basilica at St. Peter's will take place as thoughts turn to who could be the next Pope.
I welcome the court's decision and ruling. I think it's very important that we've now got real clarity.
Yes, that's what the Prime Minister thinks after the Supreme Court ruling that a woman is a biological female. Who'd have thought it? With PMQs returning today, what can be paid not to ignite calls for Sir Keir Starmer to apologise?
T21, the Prime Minister said it is not right to say only women have a cervix. In 2022, he said it is the law that trans women are women. In 2023, he said, and I quote, 99% of women don't have a penis.
A fiscal nightmare as the International Monetary Fund downgrades Britain's growth forecast to just over 1%.
The Chancellor meets with her US counterpart to try and shore up a trade deal. But is she compromising Britain's world's leading standing in agriculture? We'll be discussing just that as farmers celebrate Great British Beef Week.
And from today, police officers will automatically get the sack if they fail background checks. But why is this only happening now? We'll be asking that to the Minister for Crime.
Talks to end the Birmingham bin strikes resume 6 weeks after the all-out strike started.
The Home Office is forced to reveal migrant crime numbers, but is the data all that it seems? Here's what Robert Jenrick had to say.
which was not going to shine a light on that, then it's going to be woefully inadequate.
And in sport this morning, Manchester City moving to third for the first time since December after a last gasp win against Aston Villa last night. Snooker's bitterest rivalry continues in the World Championships. Talking of bitter rivalries in boxing, the hype ramps up for Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. at the weekend.
Well, we had some blustery wet weather pushing through overnight. A lot of that is now clearing away, but we do have a scattering of showers following in behind. I'll have the details coming up.
Hello there, good morning, very good to see you. I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Nana Okwia, and this is a GB News Breakfast.
Matter from Australia and New Zealand, here on France 24. Rochelle Harrison-Pless, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farry, and this is Daybreak. The remains of Pope Francis are to be removed to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday, where the late Pope will lie in state until his funeral on Saturday. Worshippers will be able to pay their respects from 3 p.m. this afternoon. The UK hosts talks aimed at bringing about a ceasefire in Ukraine, welcoming delegations from France, Kyiv and the United States. But top US diplomat Marco Rubio will not be there. Some of Washington's proposals for a settlement are not going down well with Ukraine. And Marco Rubio announces an overhaul of the US State Department to bring it in line with Donald Trump's America First policy. The plan aims to cut staff in the US by 15%, while closing and consolidating more than 100 bureaus worldwide. It's a move that NGOs fear will create uncertainty about US foreign policy across the world. And Emily Boyle will be joining us for the press review. She will be discussing how the press is covering the ceasefire talks in London. And on the occasion of Shakespeare Day, Emily will bring us some revelations about the bard's private life found in newly discovered letters. The remains of Pope Francis will be taken to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday morning, where they will lie in state until the Pope's funeral on Saturday. The church released pictures of the Pope's coffin as the Camerlengo presided over a ritual to confirm death in the private chapel of the Pope's residence. Catherine Viette has more.
A final blessing for Pope Francis. The Camerlengo, or Cardinal Chamberlain Kevin Farrell, presiding over the ritual to confirm death. Pope Francis, dressed in red vestments and his bishop's mitre, laid out in a simple wooden coffin, lined with zinc, just as he requested. The ceremony taking place in the private chapel of the Domus Santa Marta, the Pope's residence. In attendance, senior Vatican officials, including Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin. Members of the late Pope's team, including his personal nurse, were also there to pay their respects. 2 Swiss guards stood at attention during the service. The 88-year-old pontiff died on Monday after suffering a stroke that put him in a coma and caused heart failure.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shekel 5858. I am Amir Shekel. Have a good life. Bye-bye.